Hello everyone and welcome to Arcane Station. I'm your host Mike Porter, and tonight we're unpacking something unsettling, the Mandela Effect. Is it more than just a conspiracy theory or meme? I'm going to invite you to question the fabric of memory, consciousness, and even reality itself. We'll be talking about why we remember things that never happened, what quantum physics, synchronicities, and timelines have to say, how secret government experiments and AI blur fact from fiction, and what 2012, collective consciousness, and a cosmic cycle all have in common. By the end, your memory might feel like an anchor, but it also might feel like a doorway. When Fiona Broome coined the term the Mandela Effect in 2009, she didn't expect to inspire a global movement. She simply noticed that she remembered Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s while incarcerated. But the truth? He was released, became the president of South Africa, and passed away in 2013. Yet thousands unanimously recalled the opposite. What's fascinating is how deeply and consistently people share these false memories. You've got everyone from boomers to Gen Z insisting on the same details. The shift from the Berenstain bears to the Berenstein bears, the absent monocle of the Monopoly Man, the silver leg of C-3PO. These are not fleeting lapses. They're long-lived confusions reinforced through culture and conversation. Psychologists call this false memory. The brain's tendency to reconstruct experiences, often influenced by expectations, schemas, and repetition. An excellent summary explains that it involves recalling events that never happened, distorting real events, and most strikingly, share those memories with others as if they happened identically. People claim that no eyewitness can be trusted fully because our memory is faulty and prone to error. We may conflate or skew information based on influences around us or suggestions from others. In fact, a study at the University of Chicago, led by Wilma Bainbridge and her team, measured the visual Mandela effect, finding that participants consistently misremembered iconic visuals like logos and fictional images. That work offers compelling evidence that memory errors aren't random, they're shared and patterned. So are we collectively misremembering, or is something deeper showing itself through our fallibility? So now let's scale up from memory to matter, or scale down really. Around the same time that the Mandela Effect stories gained traction, CERN powered up its largest particle accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider, in 2008. There was a massive concern that the LHC would destroy the world or the universe. The concern about tiny black holes, strangelets, magnetic monopoles, and a vacuum bubble had people protesting and trying to stop the Large Hadron Collider from conducting experiments. While none of the above happened, what did happen was a massive discovery. In 2012, CERN confirmed the Higgs boson, the particle that gives matter its mass. This discovery, nicknamed the God particle, which gave rise to other concerns. Some theories suggest that the way it interacts with the universe could have potentially catastrophic consequences, including the possibility of the universe collapsing into a lower energy state. Meanwhile, Mandela Effect phenomena surged. So let's go deeper into this. The Higgs boson is a fundamental particle associated with the Higgs field, an energy field that permeates the universe. This field gives other particles their mass, playing a crucial role in the structure of the universe. Some theoretical calculations base the Higgs boson mass and its interaction with other particles. Some theoretical calculations based on the Higgs boson's mass and its interaction with other particles suggest that our universe might be in a metastable state. This means that theoretically, a quantum fluctuation could cause the Higgs field to transition to a lower energy state. This transition could create a bubble of a new, lower energy state that expands at nearly light speed, potentially wiping out everything in its path. Now, this is not a major concern, at least not yet. The probability of this happening is incredibly small, and the energy required to trigger such a transition is far beyond anything achievable with current or even foreseeable future technology. The universe is currently stable, and the calculations suggest that instability are based on theoretical models that have some uncertainties. However, despite the low probability, physicists are actively studying the Higgs boson to understand its properties and interactions in more detail. This includes investigating how the Higgs boson interacts with itself, and whether it decays into particles that could be related to dark matter. Such studies could reveal new physics beyond the standard model and redefine our understanding of the universe's stability. So is it possible that something happened when we discovered the Higgs boson and the Higgs field? Could this have shifted reality, nudging our timeline and creating inconsistencies we perceive as memory errors? It sounds like science fiction, but physics tell us reality's fabric is malleable at extreme energies. Even though there's no solid evidence linking the Mandela Effect to CERN, the temporal overlap is uncanny enough to spark speculation. Could we have momentarily slipped into a parallel branch of history, missing only a few anomalous memories to prove it? So let's zoom into quantum mechanics for a moment. In the famed double slit experiment, particles like photons produce wave patterns, unless you observe which path they take, in which case they behave like particles. Observation changes what happens. The double slit experiment demonstrates the wave-particle duality of quantum mechanics, showing that particles, like electrons and protons, can behave as waves and create interference patterns, even when they are sent one particle individually. When a particle is fired at a screen with two slits, it appears to go through both slits simultaneously and interfere with itself, creating a pattern of alternating bands of high and low probability, which is called an interference pattern. And that is displayed on a detector screen behind the slits. This happens even when particles are sent individually, with the pattern building up over time. Classically, one would expect particles to go through either one slit or the other, creating two bands on the detector corresponding to the slits. When the experiment is conducted, an interference pattern of alternating bands of high and low probability emerges on the detector, not the two bands expected. This pattern is characteristic of wave behavior, where the waves passing through the slits create areas of constructive and destructive interference. Just think of throwing a pebble into a pond or two pebbles into the pond. You have those rippling effects. That's what's happening here. This result shows that particles can behave as waves, exhibiting interference, even though they are also detected as particles at a specific point on the screen. If you try to determine which slit each particle passes through, the interference pattern disappears and the particles behave more like classical particles, landing in two bands behind the slits. This suggests that the act of observation or measurement influences the particle's behavior. There is no classical explanation for the double slit experiment. It is a fundamental demonstration of quantum mechanics and the concept of wave-particle duality. The particle's behavior is not predetermined, and it seems to know about both slits simultaneously, even when it's sent to one slit. Even more bizarre is the idea of the delayed choice experiment by physicist John Wheeler. The decision to measure a particle can retroactively determine how it behaved in the past. In a tangible sense, your present decision affects the past. Wheeler's version of the double slit experiment adds a twist. The decision to measure which path the particle will take or not is made after the particle has already passed through the slits. Imagine a scenario where a particle has already passed the slit and it's heading towards the screen, and then only at the last moment before it hits the screen, you decide to either A, put a detector behind the slit to see which one it went through, or B, not put a detector, letting the particle waves interfere. The experiment suggests that the particle's behavior, either wave or particle, seems to be determined by a choice after it was already passing through the slits. This leads to a question. How can a measurement made at a later time retroactively influence the particle's behavior at an earlier time? It seems like the particle knows what measurement will be made and adjusts its behavior accordingly, even though the measurement happens later. Could the Mandela Effect be evidence of branching reality, like the particle deciding which way it will behave? There's a concept called the many-worlds interpretation, and it suggests every quantum possibility births a new universe. There's a concept called the many-worlds interpretation, and it suggests that every quantum possibility births a new universe. So instead of having a wave function collapse and having a single outcome for a quantum event, the many-worlds interpretation states that all possible outcomes occur, but in different branching universes. This suggests the existence of a vast multiverse, with each universe representing a different realization of quantum possibilities. And the act of observation, which is standard in quantum mechanics, causes wave function collapse. And this is interpreted in the many worlds interpretation as causing the branching of the universes rather than a collapsing of the wave function. While mathematically consistent with quantum mechanics, the many worlds interpretation is a controversial interpretation due to its lack of direct experimental evidence for other universes and the vastness of the proposed multiverse. In essence, the many worlds interpretations offers a radical view of reality, where all possibilities are physically realized in separate universes rather than being reduced to a single outcome through observation. Now there's another variation of this, and that's called the many minds interpretation. So rather than a wave collapse to a possible outcome, or a universe splitting into an unlimited number of variations, it's your consciousness that splits. You may remember a logo differently because your mind landed in that branch of unlimited possibilities. The many minds interpretation of quantum mechanics proposes that when a quantum measurement is made, the observer's mind branches into multiple states corresponding to each possible outcome, rather than the universe itself splitting into multiple worlds, as in the many worlds interpretation. This means that each observer experiences only one outcome, while the other potential outcomes exist in other minds. Quantum mechanics describes quantum systems using wave functions, which can exist in superpositions of multiple states. However, when we observe a quantum system, we always find it in a definite state. The measurement problem asks, why is the wave function collapsed to a single state upon observation rather than remaining in superposition? In the many minds interpretation, the observer's mind is in a superposition of states after the measurement, but only one of these states is experienced by the observer. So think of this as your brain deciding on all possible outcomes and then choosing the one that's the most likely. That's what's happening here. But rather than all of the different ideas fading away, they're just a different branch along the same timeline. So this interpretation suggests that consciousness plays a crucial role in the collapse of the wave function, as it is the observer's mind that branches, not the entire universe. Like the many worlds interpretation, the many minds interpretation avoids the need for a wave function collapse, which is not explicitly part of the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. Now, of course, there's criticisms, and a major one is the idea of the mind being in a superposition of states, as it seems to contradict our experience of being in a definite state, in a state of being. In essence, the many minds interpretations offers a way to reconcile the quantum mechanical description of superpositions with our experience of a single definite reality by placing the branching at the level of the observer's mind rather than the universe itself. Now there's another theory called the orchestrated objective reduction theory, and that proposes that consciousness arises from the quantum computations within microtubules, the structural components inside of neurons. It suggests that these quantum processes, orchestrated by microtubules, ultimately lead to the moments of conscious awareness. This theory, developed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, is a quantum mechanical approach to understanding consciousness. So a more detailed explanation of this is that the theory suggests that microtubules within the neurons are capable of performing quantum computations. These computations are theorized to terminate via a process called objective reduction, which is a non-computational collapse of the quantum wave function. This termination, according to the OR theory, is that it gives rise to moments of conscious experience. So the orchestrated part of the name refers to the idea that these quantum processes are specifically organized and coordinated within the microtubules. Now, obviously, this is a controversial theory, and there's ongoing debate about its feasibility and the role of quantum mechanics in biology. One proposed way to test the theory, though, involves examining the effects of general anesthetics on quantum states in microtubules, according to Stuart Hameroff, MD. In essence, OR suggests that consciousness is not solely a product of classical neural activity, but rather emerges from the intricate quantum processes happening within the fundamental building blocks of our neurons. These ideas suggest that memory isn't just a misfire, it may be a breadcrumb left where your consciousness crossed a boundary. Now, could companies influence our mind without our awareness? Subliminal advertising theory posits that messages flashed quickly enough or presented subtly enough can influence consumers' thoughts and behaviors without conscious awareness. This theory suggests that while viewers might not consciously perceive these messages, they can still register in the subconscious mind, impacting their choices and preferences. However, scientific evidence supporting the effectiveness of subliminal advertising and manipulating behavior is limited and often debated. But here's some core ideas. So subliminal perception is the idea that stimuli presented below the threshold of conscious awareness can still be processed by the brain. The threshold of perception refers to the minimum level of intensity or duration required for a stimulus to be consciously perceived. There's also this concept of dual process theories of cognition. These theories suggest that human cognition involves both conscious and unconscious processing, with subliminal messages potentially influencing the latter. Another concept is called priming. This refers to the phenomenon when the exposure to a stimulus, even subliminally, can influence subsequent thoughts and behaviors. So there's another concept called priming. This refers to the phenomena where exposure to a stimulus, even subliminally, can influence subsequent thoughts and behaviors. And examples of it and applications of this are hidden images and symbols. Advertisers might embed suggestive images or symbols within logos or pictures, hoping they'll be perceived subconsciously. And if you look online, there's quite a few examples of this, like having the female form in the ice of a whiskey glass, or even some people say that sexually suggestive materials inside of Disney movies, and you can see images of this online. There's also a concept called fast flashes. Short, rapid flashes of words or images in videos or presentations is another technique often described. And then also there's low sound levels or music played beneath the audible range that can be used to influence emotions or associations, so subtle sound effects. There's also this concept of product placement inside of movies and TV shows, and there's this idea that because they're in these areas, it produces a subconscious familiarity with the product. Obviously, there's a lack of empirical evidence, and while the theory is compelling, many studies have failed to demonstrate that subliminal advertising readily leads to significant behavioral changes. And the idea of manipulating consumers without their awareness raises serious ethical concerns about autonomy and deception. The theory has also fueled conspiracy theories about hidden agendas in advertising and media by this they cabal. Who knows what their ultimate goal is? So some argue that even if subliminal messages are processed, their impact. Now, there are some people that say even if they are using subliminal messages, their impact is likely very weak and easily overridden by conscious thought and rational decision making. Okay, so maybe the stores weren't doing market research on a logo or trademark that would provide more revenue. That doesn't discount the idea that we're being manipulated. Now let's ground this in documented history, where memory was actually manipulated. MKUltra was a top-secret Central Intelligence Agency program focused on research and experimentation with mind-controlling techniques. It operated from 1953 to 1973. The project was born out of the Cold War era, driven by the fears that the Soviets, the Chinese, and the North Korean agents were using mind control to brainwash U.S. prisoners of war in Korea. The CIA wanted to develop their own methods for controlling human behavior with drugs and psychological manipulations. Headed by CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb and initiated by CIA Director Alan Dulles, MKUltra aimed to create a truth serum for interrogations and explore possibilities of mind control, according to History.com. MKUltra involved over 150 documented research subprojects, though the true extent of the program remains unknown due to the destruction of most of the records in 1973 by the order of then CIA Director Richard Helms. The experiments included drugs, hypnosis, and other techniques. So, administering various psychoactive drugs, particularly LSD, to unwitting subjects, including mental patients, prisoners, drug addicts, prostitutes, and even CIA employees. The goal was to study their reactions and explore the mind control potential. With hypnosis, researching hypnotically induced anxieties, enhancing learning and memory recall, and studying the relationship between personality and susceptibility to hypnosis. The other techniques involved utilizing electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation, and developing other means to manipulate mental states and alter brain function. So there were some other notable experiments and locations. So for instance, Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA established brothels and safe houses where men were unknowingly dosed with LSD and observed through one-way mirrors. There were even Canadian experiments. Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron, a respected psychiatrist, conducted experiments on patients at the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal. And they used LSD, paralytic drugs, and electroconvulsive therapy to try to de-pattern their brains and reprogram their psyches. MKUltra was a violation of individual rights and human rights, disregarding informed consent and causing severe psychological and physical trauma, even death, to many victims. The program operated without oversight and was based on experiments conducted on vulnerable populations. The program's existence was revealed in 1975 by congressional investigations, so the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission. While some victims and their families received compensation, including the family of Frank Olson, a CIA scientist who died after being dosed with LSD, many others were not compensated for the harm inflicted upon them. The revelations surrounding MKUltra led to reforms in human experimentation protocols, including the requirement of informed consent. However, the program left a lasting legacy of distrust in government and raises important questions about the ethical boundaries of research science and the intelligence activities. So once again, there was the Operation Midnight Climax. There was Project Artichoke, a predecessor to MKUltra. It focused on interrogation techniques using drugs and hypnosis, including efforts to determine if individuals could be forced to attempt assassinations. And then Project Bluebird preceded Artichoke and involved the study of interrogation techniques, including the uses of drug and hypnosis. So clearly they were trying to get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do and to act in a way that they wouldn't normally act. Each of these programs has been declassified and are of public record. What's chilling here is that memory is malleable, and in large-scale culture, media and repetition can nudge collective memory too. Perhaps the Mandela Effect parallels these influences, not through psyops, but through viral misremembering. So let's pivot to symbolism. 2012 wasn't an apocalypse, it was a cosmic reset, the end of the Mayan long count calendar, marking a new cycle. In astrology, it signaled the age of Aquarius, thought to usher in collective awareness and spiritual evolution. Now, the Mayan civilization's long count calendar reached the end of the cycle on December 21st, 2012, which some misinterpreted as the end of the world. However, this date simply marked the completion of a 5,125-year cycle called a Baktun, and began a new one. According to Mayan scholars, there were no prophecies predicting doomsday or apocalypse for 2012. So here's a more detailed explanation. The long count calendar the Mayans used to track long periods of time. It consisted of 144,000 days, which they considered one Baktun. So now that we've gotten the Mayan calendar out of the way, and it didn't predict a doom, but rather a changing of a time, an end of an era. And I want to turn to astrology for a minute because there's something similar to that, and it's the age of Aquarius. In the age of Aquarius, individuality and authenticity are highly valued and encouraged, signifying a shift from conformity to unique self-expression. This era emphasizes the importance of personal freedom, independent thinking, and a strong sense of self, while also recognizing the interconnectedness of humanity. So the Age of Aquarius celebrates the unique qualities and perspectives of each individual, encouraging people to break free from societal constraints and express themselves authentically. This era promotes independent thinking and intellectual curiosity, encouraging individuals to question established norms and explore unconventional ideas. Independence is a key characteristic of this age, with individuals valuing their freedom and autonomy, often preferring to forge their own path, according to the Times of India. And then authenticity is a big portion of this, true self-expression. The Age of Aquarius emphasizes living authentically, expressing oneself from the core of who you are in its undiluted form. It's a time to shed the masks and expectations imposed by society and embrace one's true self. But also in valuing individuality, the Age of Aquarius also recognizes the importance of a community and interconnectedness, promoting a sense of shared humanity. In essence, the Age of Aquarius is a time where individuals are encouraged to be both uniquely themselves and connected to a larger, more conscious community. It's striking that the Mandela Effect visibility ramped up then, that year, 2012, the year the world got awakened collectively. Could it be that attention sharing, and consciousness crossed a threshold, a digital cultural awakening that rewrote how we remember. Maybe our memories changed because we changed the game. So here's the newest twist. While this doesn't really affect past Mandela effects, the newest twist will cause confusion, more discussions around shared memory, and what can be trusted to be true. Deepfake videos and AI-generated content blur the lines between what's real and what's fake. You can see someone say or do something that never happened. Memory gets conflated with plausible fiction. AI's ability to create believable, false stimuli makes us more susceptible to false memory, even when it's created digitally. AI could potentially exacerbate the Mandela effect through several mechanisms, including the spread of misinformation via deepfakes and AI-generated content, and the potential for cognitive offloading to erode memory retention. AI could also be used to rewrite the past by subtly altering information sources, leading to a collective misremembering of events. So, AI-powered tools can create highly realistic fake videos and images that distort reality, making it difficult to discern what is real and what is fabricated. The widespread dissemination of these fakes, even if initially intended as satire or commentary, could lead to the creation of false memories and a collective belief in things that never happened. For example, a manipulated image of Pope Francis in a Balenciaga jacket, even if recognized as fake by some, could still contribute to a general sense of unease and doubt about one's own memory of the past events. AI algorithms are used to curate and filter information, including search results and social media feeds. If these algorithms are trained on biased or altered data, they could subtly reshape our understanding of the past, potentially leading to a collective misremembering of events. Wikipedia is a frequently cited source of information, but the problem with that is that it can be edited by anyone, and AI language models draw from consistently evolving data sets, making it impossible for AI to subtly rewrite historical narratives. But if people are collectively changing the Wikipedia, it's only getting the data that's being fed to it. Another issue is that AI-powered tools are increasingly used for cognitive offloading, where we rely on technology to remember and process information. This reliance could lead to the decline of our own cognitive abilities, including memory retention, analytical thinking, and problem solving. If we consistently rely on AI to remember things, our own ability to recall information accurately may diminish, making us more susceptible to the Mandela effect and other forms of collective misremembering. There's also this concept of Mandela Effect 2.0, and that suggests that the speed and pervasiveness of AI-driven misinformation are accelerating at a phenomenal rate. As AI-generated content becomes more sophisticated and widespread, it becomes harder to distinguish between real memories and false ones, potentially leading to a greater number of people experiencing the Mandela Effect. This could have significant implications on how we understand and trust our own memories and how we form a collective narrative about the past. Algorithm-driven news and social media amplifies repeated versions, warping memory across millions. What one person misremembers soon becomes the truth for thousands, especially when AI reinforces it. AI may be more than new tech. It might be the most powerful memory-shifting tool yet. So what have we uncovered? So shared false memories may point less to human error than to reality's fluidity. High-frequency physics, consciousness theories, and memory manipulation all highlight mutable perception. Culture, AI, and collective narratives may drive us into memory divergence, even parallel memory tracks. So if you remember something no one else agrees with, don't dismiss their version of the story. It might just be their reality, which is different from yours. So how do we discern from what is real and what's fake? I'm going to give you some guidelines to work with. Verify the information with reliable sources. So fact check. If you recall a specific detail differently than it's presented, the first step is to consult reliable sources to confirm or refute. Now, people have gone to the Fruit of the Loom website and they've said that they've never had a cornucopia. So even though there's this vested interest, if it was changed, to keep that change in the minds of people, it becomes difficult. But do the best you can in the fact-checking. Avoid anecdotal confirmation. Be cautious of relying solely on the confirmation bias of others who share your potential false memory. And we need to understand how memory works. Your brain doesn't record events like a video camera. Instead, it actively reconstructs memories each time you recall them. This process makes memory susceptible to errors, omissions, and even distortions. False memories can be formed by recombining fragments of different memories, leading to convincing but inaccurate recollections. Exposure to external suggestions or leading questions can also influence and potentially alter your memory of an event. The other thing that you have to pay attention to is people tend to favor information confirming their existing beliefs, even if inaccurate. Memories might be altered to align with current beliefs or understanding. And the information at the beginning and end of an experience is more easily remembered. This can cause details in the middle to be incorrect. So reflect on how widely the false memory is shared. The defining feature of the Mandela Effect is that its many unrelated people share the same inaccurate memory. Scientific research suggests this phenomenon stems from shared cognitive processes and misinformation spread through various channels, including online platforms. We also need to embrace the fallibility of memory. Confidence in a memory doesn't guarantee its accuracy. Look up the Dunning-Kruger effect. Studies show that people are no better than chance at detecting false memories. Most examples, like misremembering a brand logo, are relatively harmless. They primarily highlight the imperfections of human memory. In essence, to differentiate fact from fiction with the Mandela Effect, rely on objective evidence from reliable sources, understand the reconstructive nature of memory and potential cognitive biases that influence it, and recognize the impact of collective remembering. While the Mandela Effect is fascinating, it serves as a powerful reminder that memories, though vivid, aren't always accurate reflections of reality. Thanks for traveling down this rabbit hole with me. Once again, I'm Mike Porter, and you've been listening to Arcane Station. Until next time, trust your memory, question your timeline, and maybe, just maybe, you're remembering part of reality too.